seated. Well, good morning, church. How are we doing today? All right, nice. That's good for us, man. Get loud and proud. Welcome. If I don't know you, my name's Ryan. Been around here for a really long time, and I love this place. I love these people. This is my hometown. Sorry, that worship was intensely good this morning. I loved it. It was really, really good. Yes. And that All Hail King Jesus song like wrecks me in a good way. Like it just, I don't even know. Just All Hail King Jesus. So take me a minute. I'll get through it. But I'm just feeling really good right now. So we're in this Relationships Matter series. And I got the beautiful opportunity to talk about Christ-centered community. Now, we're going to get there, I promise. But we're going to go a little bit of a roundabout way because this is a passion of my life. I don't know that I'm good at it per se, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that you're ever really good at it, but it's something that I aspire to because I believe it's radically changed every ounce of who I am, right? And here's why. So last week, anybody been to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio? We got roller coaster people? Yeah, it's pumped about it. We love, well, my family loves roller coasters. And we got to go there last week, and they had this ride called Top Thrill Dragster several years ago, came out, and man, it would go from 0 to 120 in 4 seconds, and you didn't even know what to do, right? I mean, it was unbelievable. I remember my dad and myself and my sisters, we were there on the day that it opened years ago, right? And it was a moment that I will never forget because I've never felt going that fast in 4 seconds. And I know some of you guys probably have cars and all that stuff that you've done it, but this is me, okay? I'm telling my story. It was one of those things. So we got to go back there this week, or last week, and they've retooled that one. They've added some rides. I mean, it was epic in every sense of the word, right? So that's one of my favorite places to go in the world. Another favorite place of mine to go in the world is in the Rockies of Colorado. I'll never forget in July, the last week of July in 2019, I went for the first time and saw Rocky Mountain National Park. And it blew every shred of mind that I could possibly have. So there's this peak called Alpine Peak. I couldn't find a photo for whatever reason. I've got it somewhere. I just don't know where it went. But I sat on top of Alpine Peak for hours and didn't talk and couldn't speak because there's just 14,000-foot mountains as far as the eye could see. It was epic, and I will never forget it. In fact, I just had a conversation about that last week with my friend Matt, who was there on that trip, and we had some pretty amazing memories. And the last one, for whatever reason, this memory, it's not going to be all that epic to you, but I remember it. It has to do with my family. And if you know me or my family, you know we run the pack. That's just what we do, right? Like, I don't know, you can call it good, call it bad, call it what you want to, but where we go, right? It's not just me, it's all of us, and it can be overwhelming. But there was this experience. It's our first family vacation after I got married, right? And we're on the way down, and we had Jackson, who was a baby. Jackson was playing acoustic guitar over here. He was a wee baby at the time, little one. And I remember we were riding in the car, and something happened about getting him a bike, or I don't know what happened. Something came up with a bike and a helmet. And all of a sudden, everybody started instructing myself and my wife on how we're going to, make him wear a helmet or not wear a helmet or whatever the debate was. Like, everybody just started instructing us. And I'm used to that, okay? Like, I'm super accustomed to it. I grew up in it. My wife, however, came from a single mother. And it's just them two, right? And her mother worked 2 jobs to make it work. And so there wasn't a ton of, like, that type of communication in their world. And so she just finally came to a boiling point. It was like, I will do whatever I want to with my kids, right? I will do whatever I want to. And we laugh about that. And that's an epic memory. For whatever reason, it's an epic memory of my life. And I think you can do this. Like, you can go back and look at the epic memories that you have. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or if you're 100. You can look at the epic memories that you have that are good. You take everybody else involved in that memory out of the picture, and it ceases to be as good, right? Like, if I go to Cedar Point alone, and I met a guy that was there by himself, he had a YouTube channel, and he was there by himself, and he was wanting somebody to share in that experience so bad that he was doing it on a digital platform, which is a good thing. He scratched that itch, right, for the old Kentucky phrase. If I go to Colorado by myself, my mind is going to be blown in every sense of the phrase, but it's not the same as it would be now that I get to sit down with my friend Matt and we had a conversation about the beautiful memories, the ways we experienced God together on that mountaintop. My family is amazing, and I love them. And I know some of you don't have, a great crew like that, but you take them out of my world, and I'm thinking about it and just get teared up. Like, it's empty. And here's what I believe. I believe the God of the universe has wired every single one of us that way. Even in the bad moments. Like, if you think through the terrible things that you've been through, I think about, we've buried almost 10 people in my family in the last 8 years. And so, like, if I think about those moments, more than anything, I don't necessarily need community and conversation. I don't need to go have fun, but maybe I need somebody else to understand where I'm at. I need somebody outside of my terrible experience to at minimum be able to say that it's going to be okay, or maybe to understand how I'm feeling. I look at marriages all the time that crumble around them. I work with men who struggle with addiction, and I think what they want and what they desire more than anything is other people to at minimum understand where they are. But the overlap is the draw to others. And I heard Pastor Dixon a couple weeks ago, and I heard Ubi last week. Both of them, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, said the same thing in the sense that if your walk with the Lord is not leading you towards others, to be with others in community, it might not be the walk that the Lord has for you. And that's the big idea that I want to rest. Everything that we say is going to be around that central idea. But for followers of Jesus, I believe God's crafted it in such a way that we have this experience, and we have this moment. Like, if you call yourself a Christian, like, you have a moment to where you know that things are just that they're just not the same as they were the moment before. Does that make sense? Here's mine. I was sitting in a car years ago. I probably had like one of those 1/8 to 1/8 adapters because I didn't have Bluetooth back then. Right, but I was sitting in my car listening to a sermon. For whatever reason, I had read books and done all the intellectual work on the front side of beliefs, raised in church, walked away from it because I didn't know what was happening. But whatever happened, God used James chapter 1, purpose and suffering, to radically change everything about me sitting in a driveway in my car by myself. Everything about me. My son Jacob, a couple weeks ago, had the same thing happen to him at youth camp, student camp. I've seen and watched hundreds and hundreds of people go into baptism pools and come out. They have a moment. Everybody who's a follower of Jesus has a moment that's not a whole lot different than the moments like mountaintops and theme parks and all that. We have a moment where we are openly ready to get other people involved. We do this in community. Like, the Bible teaches that we publicly baptize people and we share that moment with everybody because it's not intended to do alone. It's a moment that every one of us have. It's a moment to where we've been rescued. John chapter 5, verse 1 through 9 says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, he said to him, do you want to be healed? The sick man answered him, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool. Like when the water is stirred up, and while I'm going, another steps down before me. And Jesus said to him, get up, take your bed, and walk. And at once the man was healed. And he took up his bed and walked. Now that day was a Sabbath, so one night. So he took up his bed and walked. So that's a moment of rescue that man had. So we come through as followers of Jesus, this moment where we realize everything's just not okay. And then we have this moment, and after that moment, we enter into what I'm going to call today the resurrected life. The resurrected life. Because Jesus resurrected, from the grave, that same power lives in us. And so in the moment that we receive Christ, we step over from death to life. So the resurrected life begins in this moment. We are rescued. Christ saves us and gives us new life. Now the beauty in that is exactly what it says. It's relatively self-evident. Like if God is who he says he is and Jesus did what he said he did, then the natural remedy for things is to be rescued. And we all have a need for it. And there's stories and stories. You got the lady with the bleeding issue, the woman at the well, you got Nicodemus, you got all these stories where Jesus just enters into these people and provides these moments. I'm spitting everywhere and I'm so sorry. But the resurrected life, what happens for a follower of Jesus is that we have a moment that we've been rescued, that Christ takes us from death to life. And it's important that you know that Christ takes you from death to life, and you do not take you from death to life. Important distinction for the resurrected life. It's important. So the second big idea on the resurrected life is the response. So this is going to be a little bit more intense. Now, by the way, I'm going to borrow heavily from here on out from a book that I read last week. It's really, really good. It's called Practicing the Way. It's really good. Anyways, it's John Mark Comer, great author, great pastor guy. So if you've read that book, you're gonna recognize some things, and it's mostly his information that's really God's used to transform some things in my heart over the last 5 weeks, and so the last couple weeks. But the resurrected life is a response, and this is where it gets tricky. Right? This is where it gets tricky because biblically, here's our response, okay? I'm going to look at this in Romans. We're going to look in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. The whole first half of the book of Romans is all about the law and how we're not good enough. We can't do it. We need Christ. Doesn't matter what the sin is, it's death. We are walking in death apart from Jesus. That's what the whole thing is there to prove. The law exists for that reason, all of it, the first 11 chapters. And then after you get to chapter 12, or after you finish chapter 11, chapter 12 starts as a response. And you can see it in the very first verse. Chapter 12, verse 1 says, I appeal to you, therefore. When you see that therefore, we need to look back over what we just read. In this case, it's the first 11 chapters. So therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but here's our big deal. But be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable, and what is perfect. So the response to the rescue, biblically speaking, is being transformed by the story of Jesus, by the gospel, by the idea that you and I are not good enough, by the idea that you and I deserve death and we deserve hell, but because of God and his goodness and because of Jesus, therefore, we've been rescued and our response is transformation. Like it's not dogma. Like it doesn't say, be transformed by your behaviors and never saying cuss words and doing things like that. Like it says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind and understanding who Christ is. Does that make sense? Like, are you tracking there? Are we tracking together? That's the point. So we're rescued, and the rescue triggers a response. And I'm going to say something here that I say things that pastors generally aren't supposed to say, but I'll say them. I have no problems. Okay? The American church unequivocally gets this wrong every single day of our lives. And here's what I mean by that. Is we'll go rescue and we'll get baptized in this tank, water. And we'll come up, man, we'll share with the world. Here's what I did. Here's how God saved me. Here's what I've done. And it's going to be a new day. God has saved me to do great things, and he's going to do awesome things. And what we've done in the American church, hear me, I love the church, dedicated my life to serving the church, and we'll do that until the day that I die. But we've got it wrong in the sense that we tell everybody, you get saved, you get baptized, you get rescued, and then you serve God and serve others, and it just stops there. Like we show up and we serve on teams, and we show up and we go to groups, and we show up to church every single Sunday, and that's just where it is. And don't get me wrong, we're really good at that, and I've had some life-changing moments there. But that's where it ends. Most of the time, our response triggers to Sunday attendance and doing things for God. Would you agree? Is it good? Nod heads. You don't have to say anything, right or wrong. It's just what it is. I think the data will say it. Like in the whole book that John Mark Comer wrote is that the whole idea is this idea that we were created to commune with God, to be in relationship with God. We were created to be an apprentice of Jesus. That's an important word. Notice I didn't say just disciple. Disciple is a biblical word. It's a good word. Talmud, talmudim means learner. Like that's what they are. If a disciple of Jesus, I want to be a learner of Christ. But apprentice takes it to a different level. I know I've told this 1,000 times. My dad was a carpenter growing up. And so you can imagine what my summers and, life looked like working all the time. That's just what we did. Small family business that builds houses. Guess what I got to learn to do? Build houses, right? That's just what we did. And so wouldn't trade that for the world, by the way. It's been awesome. But there was a season of my life, the first bunch of years of my life, to where I was an apprentice to my dad. So we'd go to work, and then I would slowly learn how to do things. First, learn how to mark and read a tape and figure out, you put your studs on what the layoff's going to be, and how do we get, these pieces of wood to line up so that we don't have to change everything every time. How do we do those things? There's a process of learning that. I don't show up as an 8-year-old and start using skill saw, like, circular saws. That's just not what you do. There's a process. There's an apprenticeship. And so I would get the privilege of going and watching my dad work. I'd be with him and doing all the stuff. I'd be right there watching him. He'd let me do some of the things. And then as I got older, he would introduce me to more challenging things. And then as I got older, he would put me in the most precarious, dangerous positions that you could possibly imagine. That's just kind of how that worked. And I'm here, right? I only cracked 3 ribs one time, and I met my wife because of it, so it's a good deal, right? Thank you. Different story for a different day, but it's a game changer. So I get to be an apprentice to my dad. And so if I was just a disciple, then maybe it stops at learning. Like the original intent on that word disciple, you got to understand what that is and what that was. Is that Jesus would spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week with these young men. And he would show them everything, walk around everywhere. He'd walk them 30 miles a day. Like one story was he walked them 30 miles to go from one place to the other just to teach them a lesson. So as a disciple in the ancient world would have seen it, it's much more like an apprentice. Right? So we've, I kind of lost my place, so I want to make sure we get here. So buried in this idea, we get rescued, and buried in this response is an invitation not to simply call yourself a Christian and show up to church and do things for Jesus. It's an invitation to be an apprentice. And there's 3 things that an apprentice does. Now, I got a slide for it for you note takers, right? Responsibilities of apprentice of Jesus is to be with Jesus, to be one like Jesus, and to do what Jesus did. I wanted to get a WWJD bracelet. That would have been so sweet. What would Jesus do? Y'all know what that is? Am I that old? Wow. Okay, somebody's got it. I needed to go. Like, I should get that tat or something on my arm, like a WWJD. What would you? But that's it. Essentially, be with Jesus. When I was with my dad, I was with him on the job sites, right beside him. He was guiding my steps. He was telling me what to do. He was telling me what not to do. He was yelling at me for being late and sleeping in. All that kind of stuff. He was getting on me. I don't think Jesus will yell at you. It's okay. Be like Jesus. Man, my dad was my hero. I wanted to be just like him. I could watch him do cool stuff, or what I thought was cool when I was little. It's kind of not as cool now because it's really, really hard work, but it was cool then. I want to be just like him. You know what I mean? I want to be like my dad. Like everything he's doing right there, I'm going to do. So we do as Jesus did. The invitation doesn't stop with just being rescued and just one simple response of doing your due diligence to make yourself feel better. And I'm not preaching at you, trust me, I'm preaching. One of the beautiful things about preaching, there's my buddy Mark Weaver told me, I think so he got it from somebody, I'm sure, but he said when you teach, you learn twice, right? It's like one of the beautiful things that God does in these moments when people are on the stage, hopefully that's the goal, is it shapes the hearts of the people that are teaching them his word. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we've been invited to be apprentices. You've been invited to be an apprentice. And so being with Jesus, you can incorporate that daily Bible reading. You can do prayer. You can do the spiritual discipline type thing. All that's included in the story. All that's there. But like when you look at all of America, so there was a Pew survey, came out, says 63% of Americans claim to be Christians, say that they're Christians, identify with the title or label of Christian, however you want to say that. When you put the metrics of apprenticeship on there, you know what the percentage goes down to? 4. Right? That means there's probably 5 or 6 people in this room that are apprentices of Jesus, statistically speaking. Whew. It's crazy, I know. I get it. Trust me, I've been wrestling with this for a week and a half. It's intense. And the challenge, what ends up happening is we know. You're raised in America. You know what to do. There's this like head versus heart tension that every single one of us wrestles with, including, by the way, this should make you feel a lot better, Paul, like one of the primary authors of all of the scriptures, dude, he struggled with the same thing. Romans chapter 7, go read it. Romans chapter 7, he'll say, man, I know all the stuff that I need to do, but I just don't do it for whatever reason. I don't even know why. I just know all the things that I'm supposed to do, and I never do it. We have the same thing in America. Like, we know that reading your Bible has statistical realities that make every aspect of your life better, reading it 4 times a week. We know that. We've heard it. If you've been coming here, I know you've heard it. We say that stuff all the time. We know that praying is what, quote-unquote, good Christians, which is the dumbest phrase in the world, really do. Like, we know if you want to benefit your relationship with God, pray. We know all those things. We know coming to church consistently does things like builds healthier families statistically. We know every bit of it. The problem is just because we know it doesn't mean that we get it. And a lot of that's cultural. And I believe God is patient with us. I believe he's filled with grace for that. I'm not being judgmental. It's not what this is about. But I do believe it's a hard teaching. I do believe we need to wrestle with some really hard things. Because if your relationship with Jesus is chalked up to coming here and serving or leading worship or doing whatever it is that you do, or teaching, Bible teaching, or serving in the booth, like or just attending on Sunday, like if your relationship, your walk with the Lord is simply that, you missed the invitation. Everybody got an invitation that you just threw in the trash and pretended you never got it? Don't lie. I know you have, right? We've done it. Every one of us have done it. It's like the calendar invite that's there that you just ignored or you never accepted. So it's not really on your calendar. It's got the lines on it. Yeah, you know. I know, we know. Because every one of us do it all the time. Because you don't want to say no, but you don't want to say yes. It's the same tension that we wrestle with. It's the difference in a cultural Christian versus an apprentice of the King of the universe. And do we understand the heaviness? Like, that's in my brain when I say that. I can't explain to you how much weight and good weight and pressure is on me to make that absolutely abundantly clear. You are not invited just to attend this place, as amazing as it is. You're not. It's only part of the story. And you've been lied to if anybody's told you anything different. If your transformation is anything apart from Christ and being a disciple or an apprentice of Jesus, you've been lied to and you've accepted the lie. Me too. I've walked it out for years, including on this stage. And it's not shame-filled. It's just God wants, like he wants so much more for you and for me. He just wants so much more. You're not doing a bad job. It just might be a wrong focus. And just maybe this is your wake-up call, as it's kind of been my wake-up call. So let's focus on apprenticeship as opposed to whatever culture has told us is going to get us the real value out of this walk with Jesus. We've been rescued. Man, Christ changed my life. And I walked away from church and faith for years, guys. I walked away from for 3, 4 maybe. I didn't know what to say. People say, are you a Christian? I don't know. I spit when I talk, so it must be a pastor. Sorry, I'm trying. I would say, I don't know. I feel like I believe in God. It's all that really makes sense. But I don't know that I'm a Christian. You don't know why I walked away from it? Because some of the most amazing people in the world that I've ever known to this day, I watched them come to church and say all the things that need to be said. Yeah, Jesus, man, he changed my life. It's unbelievable. It's cool. Serve their hearts out. And they did it for what I thought was the right reasons, or what I think is the right reasons. But I interpreted it as a disconnect from the true story of the scriptures that I understood as I was walking this life. It just felt different. And I didn't know how to reconcile it, so I just left. And thank God that, we came back and we did all the things. And I think you should serve, by the way. If you spend 5 seconds with me, you're going to know that I'm a serve guy. You need to serve your church. You need to be in groups and teams. You need to do that. It's an important part of what we do. Don't hear me say that. This is not church bashing. I love the local church. I do believe it's the hope of the world. I think everybody that walks around you, including you, with struggles, this is the place to come deal with it. This is the hospital that we come to for those things. So don't hear me say that. So we're rescued. Our response is transformation, right? So the big moment leads us to transformation, and those experiences together should, biblically speaking, lead us towards relationships. So the resurrected life, the third big idea that we're going to look at is relationships. We live out, our lived transformation because of this rescue, we live it out in Christ-centered community. And I'm going to say this again. If you call yourself a follower of Jesus and you don't have a bent towards Christ-centered community, we've got to figure out some things, because I think there's something that you're misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding it. If you're not encouraged by the gathering, there's something that's not clear, right? There's something that's not clear. It's important. Jesus is all over it. In fact, here's what Jesus says about the value of community. It's that last slide we talked about, Matt. Why community matters to Jesus, number one, is it reflects the nature of God. He says in John 17 that they may be one as we are one. That's how God the Father and the Holy Spirit, that's how they roll. The greatest apologetic to the world. It's a reason, it's an explanation of who God is when we are in Christ-centered community. It says, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. It is the environment for obedience. Christ-centered community is the primary mechanism God uses to mature and grow you. And others, by the way. That's an important distinction. Mature and grow you and other people. And then lastly, it fulfills the mission. As you send me to the world, I've sent them. Jesus sent his disciples out 2 by 2. And he sent them out together as a team. He'd go off by himself to be with God, and then he would send them to do things. That's how this thing worked. It was never just individuals to go here and individuals to go accomplish that. He accomplished mission together collectively, and the benefits are below. Deep joy and encouragement, shared spiritual strength, right? Real transformation happens because a group of people know who you truly are, and they still love you. I tell people all the time, the more you get to know me, the less you're probably going to respect me. So that's how I kind of judge my friends. People that still pursue me in the midst of my brokenness, and that's facts. I definitely am not telling you a lie. That's real. I try to be respectful and kind and real, but there's just darkness and brokenness in every single one of us. And we got to quit hiding it. We got to quit hiding it. That's the rescue was light, by the way. A powerful witness to the world. I think we struggle a lot of times sharing our faith. The words can be difficult, but you know what's not incredibly difficult? Is our actions and our lived experience and our story. And collectively in a group of people is the space for that. Now, I'm not saying that that's easy. If you've ever been in a group, then you'll know. But here's an example. So my wife and I have been leading life groups for, over a decade. Long time. The very first one we ever led at One Life, I laugh telling it, it's just so funny. So my wife, she's the fun committee. That's what I call her. She's the fun committee. So she does all the icebreakers and the fun stuff. And then I do this stuff, say the hard things and talk. And that's just enjoy it. Gifts. And so we had 25 people show up night one, which was weird for us because we were brand new here. We didn't know. So we had like 25 people show up, and we go around, and the question was, what inanimate object would you get out of your house if it was on fire? You know, that was important, right? I got guitars. They're made of wood. I got to get that crap out of there, you know? I can't get those things out. I mean, kids are most important, but you've got other things too. You know, so it was fun. You can imagine the conversation. Here's what I'm going to get. Here's what I'm going to get there. And we get to the last couple, and they got a weird look on their face. And I'm like, okay, it's cool. You know, whatever. Everybody's cool. So we played it off. I can generally manage crowds okay. And, well, by God, they had just had a house fire like a couple weeks prior to that. And they were like it was awkward and weird, and I deeply offended somebody, and I had no idea that I deeply offended somebody. I'm not really offended, but it was just a hard moment. It was weird. Like, if you've ever been in community, it's weird. Like, and you look at Jesus, like I intentionally switched my passage to this because I think it displays some of that dysfunction in some sense. And this is Jesus' team, y'all. It's important that you know this, right? Read the Bible. You'll see it's really important. Now, I'm going to read the passage because I don't want to read 40 verses. I'm just going to read the very end, and then I'll come back and unpack it. So we are looking at John 13, 34 and 35, I believe. Yeah. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. This is how all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Anybody know where that's located? What was happening right there? That's the Last Supper. Right? And if you look back at the Last Supper, it's important to know a few things. It's the last time that they gather as a team, like as a crew, as a group. It's the last time they gather. And here's how, Jesus got all these amazingly pure plans. I mean, I'm going to wash these guys' feet. I'm going to love them and serve them well. I'm going to do this thing. And he goes and tries to wash Peter's feet. And Peter's like, bro, you ain't washing my feet. I'll wash your feet. And Jesus is like, if you're going to be with me, I'll wash your feet. If I don't wash your feet, you're not with me. Make your choice, So you got Peter, this self-righteousness kind of coming out. No, I'm not good enough. I'm this stuff. And I can't. He's projecting his own insecurities on himself. So I can't allow you to do that. I've got to do the work here. I'm not letting you work on me. I'm doing the work for you. See where I'm connecting the dots there? Self-righteousness, right? Who knows what the other guys are going on? And then he goes in and he washes everybody's feet. In the very next verse, he tells Judas to go on and do what he was going to do. That's paraphrased. So I got to paint this picture for you. There were some legit dudes in there that were there down to clown, but there was one who was being self-righteous, Peter. There were others that would go on to deny him just like Peter did. They would run away scared once he gets arrested because they were afraid of Rome. And then there was one that Jesus washed and served the feet of the men that caused him to die. And we do not see that in the American church. We don't see it. You see, we're Jesus' truth people. We want to tell people the truth about your behaviors and the truth about your beliefs. We don't always see Jesus as the way. Because Jesus as the way washes the feet of the people that are working for his demise. He serves them. He loves them. He enables them to do whatever it is that they need to go do. Come at me, bro. It was not this fear-based nonsense trying to make everybody feel bad about everything. It was unadulterated acceptance. No matter what. In his very last commandment, you tack it on to the end of Moses' number 11, the very last commandment was to love one another as I've loved you, was to get down to the nitty-gritty parts of life. He spent 3 years with 12 young men learning every bit of things that can be learned about them, trying to unlock all the mission inside of them. He poured out more wisdom in them than anybody else in the world. I deeply believe that. And they betrayed him. And they denied him. And he washed their feet. Like, if that doesn't get you, man, like, what enemies have I washed their feet this last week? I'll tell you, none. I know what enemies I've thought about punching in the face a few times. Right? I mean, if that doesn't get you where you're like, And people look at me and say the church is like judgmental and hateful. What? And people look at me and try to use the church and the Bible to be hateful. What? We are called to be rescued, a response, we're transformed, and we're called to belong. And it's hard. I know it's hard. You and I have convinced ourselves that isolation is easier. Nah, church people, they'll hurt me. As though we've never hurt anybody. I'll just be over here by myself. That way nobody sees the real me behind closed doors. And then the real you haunts you. And the real you sets up the root of your demise. Or some of us are self-righteous. I don't want to be with those people. I don't want those people in my house. That part of my life is my life. I'm not giving that up on behalf of somebody else. What about the 11th commandment? What about the resurrected life? You can have the most spiritually impactful worship service, Bible study that you could ever have. But when we're not in pursuit of the very thing God created to deepen us and mature us and grow us, that's a problem. And if your insecurity is that I don't have anything to offer them, you say, I can't go to a group, I can't lead a group, I can't start a group, I can't join a team, I can't lead a students, I can't lead kids, I can't do any of these things because I don't have enough Bible knowledge or skill set. I don't pray enough. I don't do all those things. I'm going to tell you something. The enemy has you right there where he wants you to be. Because there's not one person that's ever felt equipped and ready to do something that didn't have amounts of fear, imposter syndrome for when they do it. You imagine what I go through having to stand up here and teach for 30 minutes on the Bible of the risen God, King of the universe and his word? You think there's nothing about me that's qualified for this, y'all. I promise. I got a little bit more knowledge than some people. That's about it. Like the enemy wants you sitting there, convincing yourself that you're not good enough, and you'll do it when you know more. He will paralyze you with fear, and then nothing ever happens. But the God of the universe is like, bro, I just want you to say yes. I'll take care of all the deeds. I'll take care of all the things that need to be done. I just want your yes. That's it. I don't need your talents. He doesn't need you to be good or better. He doesn't need your good behaviors. He doesn't need any of it. He needs you to say yes. That's it. I don't care how good you are at anything. He doesn't want it or need it. He doesn't need your resources or lack thereof. He doesn't need you to make more money. He doesn't need you to do any of it. He wants you to say yes. Practicing the way of Jesus. Not simply laying out on Facebook the truth. We do life together. That's what followers of Jesus are called to. And I don't care if it's the biggest preacher on the biggest stage or the biggest no-name human being on the planet. You're called to more than just your self-righteous church attendance. And me too. Don't think I haven't looked in the mirror and said that. And I don't mean to get aggressive. But I'm sick and tired of being paralyzed by fear from the enemy. And allowing the enemy to tell me that I'm too important or not important enough or whatever to not say yes and do the thing that God's wired me to do because you have something that other people around you need. I don't care how busy your schedule is. You've got something. I don't care if you're a teenager, young adult. I don't care how old or young that you are. That really doesn't matter. The disciples were teenagers, y'all, except for Peter. They were kids. God will change the world through you. Your inadequacies will be more faith-filled for you. If you're old and feel like you're washed and you used to do all these amazing things, guess what? None of that's gone away. None of it. If you've had big dreams about making a difference, guess what? Those are probably from God because the dreams that you have that breed insecurity and fear, those are not from God, period. He will never tell you you're not enough because he's always going to be enough. We're called to be on the field playing. And we're called to be on the field playing together. That's what we're called to. You are not called to isolation. You cannot be in community. You cannot be in the will of the Father. You cannot do what God has asked you to do and not do it in community. Do you understand what I'm saying? You got to do it. You got to do it. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be ugly. Somebody's going to make you mad. Somebody's going to hurt your feelings. You're going to make somebody mad. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's going to happen. But the big idea is walking out our transformation in community. And we have room for that. At this church, we have room for that. We got groups. We got teams. It's imperfect. Manage your expectations. We're not going to do everything right. We're going to do things wrong. It's going to happen. But we're going to give it our best effort to honor the Lord with everything that we do. And that starts with us saying yes and stepping into what God's called us to do. And some of you may have things in you that have nothing to do with this church, and praise God. Go get it. You hear me? Go. Don't you listen to any insecurity. You go get it. He's waiting for action. There ain't nothing in you that can be no. Nobody can tell you no if God said yes. You go get it. Because that's who we are. We're more than conquerors. I want to pray for us. But I want you to do an audit while we're praying of yourself and your life and where you're at. The rescue story. Do you have that rescue story? Number one. And if you don't, let's do it. Right here, right now, today. People will come up here to pray. If you need that rescue story, he's got one. Period. So we can get that done today. Maybe it's the transformation. Maybe it's the response piece. Maybe the response that you have is something other than transformation. Maybe it's not real transform. Maybe your walk with Jesus, the transformation stopped the second that you got out of the tank. I've been there, done that. That's where community comes in. That's where community comes in. If you feel alone and you don't know how to do it, or maybe isolation is better for you, or I do life better alone, or I don't want these people, whatever the story is that you say to yourself, we need to step into transformation. And we can help with that. Part of that is connecting to groups and teams. Part of that is personal disciplines, those types of things. We know the story. The question is, can we or will we will ourselves to do it? And then lastly would be relationships. I'm going to ask a question. Are you in relationships, or in your relationships, is there anybody that can look you in the face and tell you that you're absolutely incorrect and sinful, and you would say thank you and repent? If the answer to that question is no, then nobody knows you. You don't have anybody that knows you deep enough. And you need to get with somebody and talk about the darkness in your heart. And let's figure out what walking this thing out looks like together. This is walking. The call of Jesus is not easy. You've been told a lie if you said it's simple. It is not easy. It is hard. And the enemy will come directly after everything that you have the second that you dedicate your life towards it. The moment you can mark it down. But if God wrote it, God said it, and we ain't got nothing to fear. And we don't have to be people that sit on the sidelines. You hear me? That's not who we are. Let's pray. God, you're good. God, we thank you for life and love and hope. And God, we thank you for peace. And God, we thank you for your mercy. God, thank you for my friends in this church. God, thank you that you want more for us than we could ever hope or imagine for ourselves. So I pray that you would gently lead, lovingly lead us into courageous obedience and stepping into Christ-centered community in the way that you designed it, not the way that we hope it may be. For my friends in here that need to know Christ, that need their moment of rescue, now's the time. Now's the time. There's going to be people up here. Come talk to them. Followers, Mark, Kirby, you guys come on up here and be ready for it. If you need a rescue moment, now's your time for rescue, right here, right now. Let's make it happen. If you need to be transformed and walk in that transformation, let's talk. Let's talk. you need to be connected, fill out a card, send an email, smoke signals, I don't care. Do it. God, move our hearts. God, continue to just beautifully shape our souls and use one another to do so. And we thank you for life.